This is a story about the forbidden love of Dima and Faraji, a tale of the Uli Kingdom. Long ago, nestled between vast golden savannas and towering mountains, stood the prosperous kingdom of Uli. Ruled by the wise king Bamara, Uli was a land where tradition reigned supreme. The people held deep reverence for their ancestors, and the laws passed down through generations governed their lives, rigid as the stones upon which the kingdom was built. King Bamara had a beautiful daughter, Princess Dama, whose beauty was said to rival the colors of the sunset. She was not only beautiful but wise, brave, and fiercely independent, which made her loved by her people. Her long, flowing hair was often adorned with golden beads, and her skin glistened like dark, polished ebony. Yet, behind her radiant exterior, Dama was a dreamer, yearning for something more than the royal life that confined her. In the foothills of Mambaraga Mountains, there lived a young man named Faraji. He was a humble farmer, born to a lineage of laborers, whose hands had tilled the soil of Uli for generations. Though his station in life was modest, Faraji was known throughout the kingdom for his kindness, strength, and keen intellect. He was a striking figure, tall and broad-shouldered, with eyes that seemed to see through the very fabric of the world. From birth, it was decreed that Dema would marry a prince from the neighboring kingdom of Lamu to strengthen ties between the two realms. It was an arranged union, sealed before she had ever drawn her first breath, as was the custom for royal offspring. But Dema, whose heart was full of curiosity and defiance, had other plans. She had heard tales of true love from the kingdom's storytellers, and she longed for a love that would consume her, not a political alliance that would stifle her spirit. One fateful day, the path of Dama and Faraji crossed in the most unexpected of circumstances. It was the day of the great harvest festival, a time when the kingdom's people came together to celebrate the bounty of the land. As part of the festivities, King Bamara decreed that a great contest would be held, where men from all corners of Huli could demonstrate their skills in archery, racing, and wrestling. Faraji, known for his athletic prowess, entered the contest. Despite his humble origins, he won every event, besting even the strongest warriors of the king's guard. The crowd cheered his name, and as custom dictated, the victor was allowed an audience with the royal family. When Faraji approached the royal dais, his heart skipped a beat as his eyes met Dima's for the first time. She stood there, regal and poised, but something in her gaze told him she was not like the other royals. And in that moment, Dama's heart stirred as well. She saw in Faraji something she had never seen in the courtiers who surrounded her: genuine strength, confidence, and a spirit that seemed free of the heavy chains of nobility. Their connection was immediate and undeniable, though neither spoke a word to the other that day. But that night, under the cover of darkness, Dama slipped out of the palace, disguising herself as a commoner. She made her way to the edge of the kingdom, where the river Machanga flowed gently beneath the moonlight. As if fate had called them both, Faraji stood, staring at the water, lost in thought. "What brings a farmer to the river at this hour?" Dama asked, her voice soft but edged with curiosity. Faraji turned, surprised by the presence of a woman so late at night. "The same thing that brings a princess to the river," he replied, recognizing her immediately, though her disguise was clever. From that moment, their bond deepened. Night after night, they met in secret at the river, speaking of their dreams, their fears, and their longing for a life free from the constraints of tradition. It wasn't long before their friendship blossomed into love, a love that was as passionate as it was dangerous. They knew their love was forbidden. Faraji, a mere commoner, could never hope to marry a princess, and Dama's betrayal to the Prince of Lamu was fast approaching. But the heart does not obey the laws of men, and their love continued to grow, hidden from the eyes of the kingdom. One night, as they lay beneath the stars, Faraji made a bold promise. "We can leave, Dama. We can run away from Huli, escape the kingdom, and live a life of our own making." Dama's heart swelled at the thought, but the weight of her royal duty anchored her. "I cannot leave my people, Faraji. I am their princess. but I also cannot marry a man I do not love. As the days passed, rumors of Dema's nightly disappearances began to spread through the palace. It wasn't long before secret meetings with Faraji were discovered by the royal guards. When the king was informed, he flew into a rage, for no royal had ever dared to defy the will of the throne in such a way. The penalty for such defiance was severe death for the commoner and imprisonment for the princess. Dema was confined to her chambers and Faraji was haunted. The king's soldiers scoured the countryside, but Faraji, swift and clever, managed to evade capture. Yet, even as he hid from the king's men, his heart ached for Dema, who was now a prisoner in her own home. With the wedding to the prince of Lamu looming, Dema grew desperate. She sent secret messages to Faraji, begging him to leave Uli and save himself, but he refused. Instead, he devised a plan to free her from the palace and flee with her to a distant land where they could live in peace. On the eve of Dema's wedding, Faraji made his move. Disguised as a royal guard, he infiltrated the palace with the help of some sympathetic servants. He reached Dema's chambers and together they fled into the night, riding on horseback toward the safety of Mbaraga Mountains. But their escape was short-lived. The prince of Lamu, who had arrived for the wedding, was furious when he learned that his bride had fled with a commoner. He rallied his soldiers and with the blessing of King Bamara gave chase. High in the mountains, Faraji and Dema were cornered by the prince's men. Outnumbered and outmatched, Faraji fought valiantly, but he was gravely wounded. As the prince approached, sword drawn, ready to deliver the final blow, Dema stood between him and Faraji, her eyes blazing with fury. "You will not take his life," she declared, her voice steady and commanding. "If you kill him, you kill me." The prince hesitated, caught off guard by her defiance. But before he could react, a powerful rumble shook the ground beneath them. The mountains, which had stood silently for centuries, began to tremble as if awakened by the gods themselves. The legend of the Imbaraga Mountains was well known in Holi. It was said that the spirits of the ancestors dwelled within the mountains, watching over the kingdom and its people. When they were angered, the earth would quake and disaster would follow. As the ground shook violently, a deep crack appeared in the earth, separating Dema and Faraji from the prince and his men. The prince, realizing that the spirit had intervened, ordered his men to retreat, fearing the wrath of the ancestors. With the prince and his soldiers gone, Dema cradled the wounded Faraji in her arms. She wept for the man she loved, for the life they could never have. But Faraji, with his last breath, smiled up at her. "Our love," he whispered, "will live forever." And with that, he passed into the realm of his ancestors. Heartbroken and resolute, Dema returned to Uli. Her heart forever changed. She refused to marry the prince of Lamu, declaring that her love for Faraji was eternal. Though the king was furious, the people of Uli, inspired by the story of their forbidden love, rallied behind Dema. They saw in her the strength to defy the old ways, and slowly the laws of the kingdom began to change. Dema would never marry again, but she ruled Uli with wisdom and compassion, her heart always full of the love she had shared with Faraji. And it was said that on quiet nights, when the moon was high and the river Machanga flowed gently beneath the stars, one could hear the whispers of their love carried on the wind, a love that transcended death, time, and the will of men. In the years that followed, the kingdom of Uli prospered, not through political alliances or royal marriages, but through the strength and unity of its people. And the tale of Dima and Faraji was passed down through generations, a story of love, defiance, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Thank you very much. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.